Welcome to the show, The Woman's Connection. I'm Barrie-Louise Switzen. Today we're going to talk about something that everybody is familiar with, money. But do you know how to invest your money and how to read the financial pages that you get in your newspapers? Well, while I've been investing for a good number of years, I still don't know how to read the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. And today to help us is Mary Ellen Spiegel from Fiscal Plus. And I would like to welcome Mary Ellen.
Thank you, Barrie.
Thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure.
There are so many periodicals out. How do you find the one that's best for you to read consistently? Or do you have to jump around and as your not your needs, well, as your needs change? What does one do?
I guess I find that there are a few publications that are reliable and consistent, and I look for consistency.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Wall Street Journal every Friday publishes a complete review of the mutual funds scenario. So I can, rather than look at the mutual funds every single day, I can wait until Friday, go to that section, and really get a complete education on how specific funds are doing, both from a year-to-date perspective, or a 3-year perspective, or 5-year perspective. So that's, I guess, to answer your question, it's really knowing what your needs are and understanding which publications have various sections to fill those needs.
Okay. Well, I think everybody has got to sit down and do a fiscal plan of their needs and what they've got. But before we get into that, why don't we just talk about, let's say, the Wall Street Journal, which we've got spread out here.
I love the Wall Street Journal, as I said, yes. Okay, this is what I brought here is the Friday section, because I had talked about that I enjoy it so much. But what's interesting about it, I think anybody, no matter what their experience is, can pick up this paper and not be intimidated. There's a guide, actually, in the form of a map, and with arrows for each one of the columns. So it's a blown-up section of one of the smaller sections. And this serves as a key to explain to you exactly what each one of the columns means. Okay?
Right.
What's really interesting about it, and why I like it so much, is that the Wall Street Journal takes it a step further. They actually will do a ranking of the fund's performance within that category. For example, there are growth and income funds, there are aggressive funds, there are bond funds, there are equity funds. They have a 5-point rating, A, B, C, D, and E, very simple. So you can look over to the far right-hand side of the column. This is only once a week that they do this. And if the letter is an A, for example, you will know that that particular fund has performed in the top 20 percentile of the funds within that category.
Okay, that's what I was just going to ask you.
Yes.
All right.
And they will do that with each various break according to the year. In other words, a fund could be A this year,
Right.
but for a 3-year track record, maybe it was a B, or for a 10-year track record, maybe it was a C.
Okay, but there's 7,000 different mutual funds.
Right.
So how do you...
And very few of those mutual funds outperform the S&P. And so I think I get a sense of what your question is. How do you tell, how can you pick which are the better funds?
Right.
This alphabet grading system is an excellent way to begin and to become educated yourself. In other words, if you would pick up the Wall Street Journal for a couple of Fridays consistently and read, there's only 8,000 funds to look at, but there aren't that many A's. There really aren't. And you would go through the various funds, and you could readily pick out where the A's are and maybe highlight a couple of those.
Uh-huh.
And what you really want to look for is for a fund that has an A rating for a 5-year time period, because that means over the course of that 5 years, they have really performed consistently well in that top category. And that's what you want for your own investments.
Okay, so the different categories again are?
A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay, but I guess what my question is some are growth funds, some are...
Yes.
Okay.
There are more than 5 categories of the types of funds.
All right.
And they will break those out for you as well. But
am I jumping too far here?
No, I was
okay.
just trying to very quickly capsulize for you the different types of funds. And fortunately, the Wall Street Journal provides another grid And they will tell you every single one of them. But to give you an idea, within the stock fund area, you will have, let's see, close to 18 different types of stock fund groupings. So that
18?
Close to, surely. Capital appreciation, growth in income, equity income, small cap, mid cap. I mean, I could go on forever. That's just within the stock funds. Then you also have taxable bond funds, and there are a number of those. You'll have municipal bond funds, and fewer of those. And then you'll have stock and bond funds, a combination of both, which is a balanced fund. Those are the general categories. Within those categories, there are, as I said, those would comprise over 8,000 different mutual funds that would fall within those categories.
And so then they're ranked according to the tier A, B, C,
That's
D,
correct.
and E. Okay. Are there any funds that are never listed, or are they all listed and all ranked in some way?
They're all listed and all ranked in some way.
All right.
Really, they are. And the nice thing also, if I may say, I believe this is the issue that has it, usually they have the 1-800 number right by it. No, I stand corrected. That's in the New York Times. They will do that on Sunday. They'll give you the 1-800 number so you can pick up the phone immediately. You can just sit there with your newspaper and your telephone and do your investing if you want.
Okay, well, let's pick, if we go with the A's. All right. Now, in any category, you want to do aggressive growth, you want to do just regular growth. What are the things that somebody should look for when they're trying to decide within that category, after they decided that is one of the categories for them? Do they have to look for B12, what's it, 12B?
Oh, the fees.
The fees, okay.
Okay, that's a very good, a very good question that you're raising, because there are, in the mutual fund industry, two different types of funds called a load fund and a no-load fund. And that means a load represents a fee that a consumer would pay for the privilege of owning that particular fund. And no-load is that there are no sales charges going into it. However, in addition to your load charges, your sales charges, you also have, as you've mentioned, your 12B fees, your administrative fees, your management fees. And each one of the funds will vary for whatever reasons. It doesn't necessarily, there's no correlation between, in my estimation, between the amount of money that's charged and the performance of a fund. There's one family of funds, the Vanguard funds, for example, that are very, very low fees. They have no loads, and they have very small administration and management fees, and they are among the top performing funds in existence. But those fees are listed in the columns.
Okay.
And it'll break them out for you. And it'll also tell you whether it's a load fund or a no load fund, and will show you some of the fees that they charge.
Oh, all right. So then between those, I mean, let's stick with the A's. All right. So then you have to look and see who's charging how much for what mutual fund that they're offering. And then it keeps narrowing down until you get to like the cream de la cream of the A funds.
That's right. Actually,
okay.
Yeah. And then within certain categories, when you do an asset allocation, you're going to want to have maybe 20, depending on what your goals are, maybe 20% of your funds would be in growth funds, and maybe 5% would be in aggressive funds, and maybe there would be 30% in an index fund, for example, and another 20% in a bond fund. But the point is that you're going to try, ideally, and this is what I try to do for my clients, is ideally I try to take every single asset class and then assign a fund that has an A rating to it, so that over the long term you can be pretty much assured that you're going to be getting the top performance across all asset classes.
Okay, well, let's just say there's 3 mutual funds in this particular category. How do you select within that category if everything is equal?
That's a good question. Okay, there's a couple of things, actually. When you say everything's equal, I think you're talking about performance and fees.
Right.
But one thing that you want to look at is the size of assets that the fund has.
Does it tell you on the Wall Street Journal, or you have to get the prospectus?
It'll tell you that in the prospectus, actually. And sometimes when you call the 1-800 number, it's possible that the person who's giving out the information may even know that information and share it with you. But usually it's not the case, and they'll send you the prospectus. But you want to look at the size of assets under management, because there's there are some funds out there that have been there for a long time that are very, very popular within the AIM family. For example, the AIM Aggressive Growth family closed out to new people coming in purchasing the funds.
Well, that's not good.
No, because though they had reached that magnificent size that was too large to really manage efficiently. So to come back to your question, if you have 3 funds that are identical in ratings, meaning they're all A funds, and also in fees, then you'd want to look at, number one, the size of assets under management. You'd also want to look at the track record, I should say, actually the number of years that the current investment manager, the portfolio manager, has been handling that particular fund. And it may be that he or she has been there for 8 or 9 years and perhaps is on the verge of leaving. So that would be, you know.
How do you know if they're leaving?
You don't know. You never know.
So that's it's a gamble. It's a risk.
It's a risk. It's a risk. So maybe you'd like to be with a fund that has a fund manager maybe 5 years or so, as opposed to someone who's been there 12 or 13 years.
Like Peter Lynch.
Like Peter Lynch. Yeah. Or there's also with the Alliance funds, Tyler Smith, who's excellent, and I believe though. I believe he's been rather sort of a senior portfolio manager, and there's no guarantee that he's going to be there for the next, say, 10 years. But that's critical in selecting a fund because it is. I mean, yes, there's the name of the company that's behind the fund, but it's the person, the fund manager, that's making the decisions and making those buys. So you're investing your money in a person. It's like. When you talk about a computer, you know, a computer doesn't make mistakes. It's the people that's inputting the data that's making the mistakes. So many people don't even think about who is that person or what are the person's credentials and history and track record behind a mutual fund's performance when they're choosing. So that is certainly something else that you should be looking at.
That's kind of hard to find out. It's almost like finding a needle in a haystack.
Not really. Not really. There's an organization, Morningstar, that puts out fund reports on every single mutual fund. And one of the elements of that report is a history of the fund manager. They'll give his or her name, their background, how long they've been with the fund, somewhat of their management style.
Well, I think the library you can go and find out. But if you don't want to go to the library, I think those reports are very expensive.
Well, there are some of them that are available on the internet.
All
right. Okay. Certainly, though, when you call your 1-800 number, you ask the representative that's answering the phone if there is a Morningstar report on that particular fund. And many times there are, and they have copies they can send to you. So you don't have to subscribe necessarily to Morningstar to get them.
Because I know that can be extremely expensive as well as Value Line, which is another service. Okay.
That's right.
I don't know. We're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yes, I know.
So, what else would you like to talk about on the Wall Street Journal?
Well, I think that, you know, when you look at one issue, a Friday issue, what you want to also look at is how it performed for the week, you know. And, for example, it'll give you the net asset value of what it's currently selling for, and it will tell you the change during the course of the week. So, for example, I've just picked up the top one here. I won't even name this. What is this? I guess it is a Dean Witter fund. A Dean Witter fund, Class C fund, which is something else. It's the top fund, and it had a positive change of 11 basis points for the week.
What does that mean?
11 basis points. There are 100 basis points in 1%. So 11 basis points is a fraction of a 1%. Okay.
So it's nothing to be alarmed.
No. It's all relative, though, because what you want to look at is what's been, now you go down to the next fund under that, and that had a positive performance of 6 basis points. Now you go down 2 more, and you see, my goodness, here's one that had a positive performance of 60 basis points. That's quite a bit relative to the rest. So you want to look at that if you're concerned about volatility. That means, you know, drastic fluctuations in your funds week to week. You would look at that on a weekly basis and just see how it is performing. What is the net change compared to other funds in the same category?
Okay, now let's go back. When you look at a mutual fund, there's always 2 prices. Yeah. But what's the NA? I think one is NAV.
the net asset value.
Okay, is that the buy side or the sell side? If you wanted to go in and say,
The
oh,
buy side.
that's the buy side. So that's what you're willing to buy it from me at, but I want to sell it more, and you want to sell it less?
Okay, well, I think that's not necessarily the case. The net asset value is what you're going to, what that has closed at for the day. That is the price of the share for that particular day of that fund, all right? I think what you're talking about is there's the net asset value and also the load charge. If you have a load fund, then you could be charged anywhere from 3 to 8 percentage points.
That's quite a bit.
I know, but that's basically where it's at. But there are not that many that are 8%. But by law, somebody could have a load of 8%. So you're going to be quoted a price that includes the load. However, that's going to come off the top. You know, if you have an A-loaded fund, meaning that it's an A share and they're taking the commission off the top, you're going to pay 3%.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, right, if you're lucky. So you're going to give your money to the mutual fund company with an extra 3% on the top that they'll take off. When you get your report the following week or month, or confirmation report, it will show you that maybe you gave them, you know, $1, let's just say. There was a 3% charge for that. So you're only going to have, what's that, 97 cents is going to be in your account as opposed to $1, because you paid for the privilege of buying that.
Well, it's a commission in one sense.
It's a commission. Right.
Okay. Now, you just mentioned something. You said something about your confirmation doesn't come in 3 business days. It might come in a month.
No, it will come in a certain, by law, it has to come in a certain number of days. They have to close. So I must have misspoke if I said it within a month.
No, okay. Because you said something about a confirmation. I didn't know if it comes out monthly, weekly, or, you know.
Within 5 days. You'll have a confirmation within
in your
5
hand?
days. You should.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not too bad. But if you want to sell the stock, on mutual funds, do you usually keep the certificate, or would you keep it at the mutual fund?
Mutual funds, you don't have a certificate. A mutual fund is kept. You get a report from your mutual fund company, or you can have a mutual fund account at a discount broker, at a Charles Schwab, for example, where you can buy all of them, you know, and they'll list them all. But you just get a week. In that case, once you make your purchase, you get a confirmation of the purchase. Then, usually, depending on the fund company, if you don't make any additional transactions, they will send you a quarterly report.
All right.
All right. Some will send them semi-annually, but usually quarterly reports. However, each time you make a trade, you then get a confirmation report back, and you'll get a complete report of an up-to-date report of where your funds stand today, in addition to the change that you just made.
Okay. I keep jumping all over the place because as questions come up, I speak of not letting you follow in a sequence here.
Well, the key point that I wanted to make, because I think that for someone who is not accustomed and not comfortable or familiar with the financial pages, when you open up the financial pages, it looks like Greek, you know, and the last thing in the world you want to, oh my God, where do I begin? It's all in shorthand and code, it seems to be the case. And what I really wanted to point out is the Wall Street Journal, with their wonderful explanatory grids, truly someone who's in first grade, I mean this, you know, anyone who can read can easily follow these pages and understand. So it's a wonderful, I mean, if you want to have a hobby, I find it relaxing to read this. I really do.
How long have you had your company?
5 years.
Oh, very good. And you're a certified financial planner?
That's correct.
All right. And what kind of training do you have to do for that?
A lot, actually. In order to be a certified financial planner, you have to take a prescribed course, which will run 1 or 2 years. You then need to have a certain amount of work experience behind you. You have to have a sponsor, you know, support you to this. And then the most grueling aspect of a certified financial planner designation, and there are only 31,000 of them in the United States, by the way.
A very select group.
Very select group, yes. But it's because there is a 2-day, 10-hour exam.
Oh, my God.
That is very difficult, and I think clearly separates out, you know,
the wheat from the shaft?
Yes, yes. You know, the financial planners from the financial planners. So, but it's an important thing for a consumer to know about, that if they're going to go out and pay someone to advise them on their finances, meaning setting up a plan and how they should be investing, that clearly the credential of a CFP, a Certified Financial Planner, is the highest credential in the field, and you can be quite certain that the person that's delivering the plan to you is going to be coming from a point of, the highest integrity, the very, very well schooled and trained in the area.
Wow.
So, but
Sounds good. Well,
yeah.
I'm not going to become one so soon. Okay, so everything with the mutual funds is in the section called Money and Investing.
Money Investing on in the Friday issue of the Wall Street Journal. Now, there's also, when I mentioned earlier about the 1-800 number, I hope it's in here, because I know it's in Barron's is where it is. But there's also the New York Times. They have, of course, every day the business section. But then every Sunday they have a business section, and occasionally, like this one, for example, I think it's every quarter, they'll produce what they call a mutual funds report. And again, it's similar to the Wall Street Journal, but the difference with the New York Times is that they don't rank them. They don't separate out where are the top ones by line item. However, they have a different technique, let me see if I can find it, where they'll choose, they will show you quarterly performances based on types of funds. So here they have a whole chart, domestic funds, domestic specialized funds, international stock funds, and they will pick out the top performers for that particular quarter. They'll also do something.
So what you would do is take the Wall Street Journal and you take the New York Times and you look up and see who's in the A category?
Correct. Actually, you could start with the Times with their weekly report where they're telling you who are the top performers for that particular quarter. And that could automatically zero you in. It would be very interesting to see if you then took that and put that up against the Wall Street Journal to see if every single one of those were A-performing funds, and they probably were. But maybe there'd be an aberration or a stellar performance for a quarter that wouldn't necessarily pan out over the long term, and that's something that you'd want to know. They also do something in the Times where they will give you the leaders and the laggards in a particular stock area too, or any type of fund.
So most of these are mutual stocks, not bonds or tax exempts.
These are mutual funds, which are totally different from. There can be a bond fund or a tax exempt fund or a sector fund, but these are funds, meaning that you are buying a share in a fund that is comprised of many different stocks within that category, as opposed to the stock pages, which are individual stocks. Say if you're interested, let's just say Walt Disney or McDonald's. Some people, will buy specific stocks like that. Then you go to the stock pages and you look up those individually. But those are not ranked. That is, I do not recommend stock picking for the beginner at all, because in order to do it well, you need to own a large number of stocks.
How many?
Well, they said that in order to be diversified, you should have 20 different stocks and have 100 shares of each one of those stocks. That would comprise a portfolio that would, if designed properly, would hedge against a certain amount of volatility, possibly, as opposed to if you own just one stock, let's just say McDonald's, for example, and all of a sudden the whole country goes on a diet, and no one
hates the fries.
Right, and it's not eating McDonald's any longer. Your stock's going to go way down, and that's where all your money is. You're going to take a tremendous hit in your net worth all of a sudden. So you want to hedge against that, certainly, and one of the best ways of doing that is through mutual funds.
Now, just quickly, because we're almost out of time here, the Barron's.
Oh, the Barron's.
Now, you said the Barron's has
the 1-800 numbers.
The 1-800 numbers. So
this is great. This issue is talking beyond mutual funds, which is the whole next, and I won't get into that. But that's the talk on the street right now, is that mutual funds have peaked and that investors are going to be going and selecting individual money managers. But at any rate, let's not dwell on that. Here in the mutual funds area, it's so thick, there's just so much here. No, wrong again. Somewhere I saw the 1-800 numbers, but it's not in
not in the Barron's issues?
Not in the Barron's. Not in the Barron's, right.
Well, maybe they just started taking them out.
Possibly.
But you can always call, I always call 1-800-555-1212 to get my 800 numbers.
Yes, and also, too, all of these issues are just chock full with advertisements, and the advertisements have the 1-800 numbers, you know, staring you in the face so you can't miss them.
Okay, well, there's so much out here. You even have a book here. It's the...
Oh, here it is. Forgive me.
Yeah.
Okay, sure enough, 1-800 numbers. These are,
They are in Barron's.
yes, indeed. They're
Okay,
all, and
but it just talks about the 1-800 numbers and doesn't really talk about the format.
no.
Oh, it does talk about
It'll have the
formats.
whole, it'll break it down by sector, for example, equity funds, and it gives you the assets within that, the returns, the 1-800 number, whether it's toll-free or in-state, your expense ratio, and they'll even give you the name of the manager, and they will tell you how long they've been the manager.
Good grief.
So
Sounds like you get it. I know, because reading the
heavy.
Wall Street Journal, the Barron's, and the New York Times can keep you busy the whole Sunday.
Correct. Yes, it can.
And then the Wall Street Journal even has a book out called Using the Wall Street Journal.
Yes, this is fabulous. This was actually required reading through the CFP course, but this is wonderful because it's not published by the Wall Street Journal. It's published by Irwin Publishing, I think, but clearly takes you through every single section of the journal and talks about, you know, there are various days they report on certain things. So this is fantastic for anyone. Good bedtime reading.
Yes, indeed. Well, I've also got some other books here, but we're running out of time. And I picked up out of my library here. I picked up an old book from college days called Anna Smith: The Money Game.
This is really priceless. I mean, this is considered to be, as they say, this is a modern classic. You can always learn from reading this book. And I was just glancing through it before the show started, and there are some wonderful vignettes on personalities, various personalities, and how they deal with money.
I think I better read it again. Because I tried getting through the Graham book that, what's his name? Benjamin Graham.
Yes.
I cannot understand that book for anything. I've picked it up numerous times, and I cannot get through the book. Well, we'll have to save that for another episode because we're out of time. Mary Ellen, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been wonderful, and I hope everybody has learned as much about reading the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the Barron's as I have, because it's been quite enlightening. Like to hear from you. Please drop me a line. You can drop me a letter at The Woman's Connection, Ansonia Station, Post Office Box 918, New York, New York 10023, or you can email me at Barrie, B-A-R-R-I-E, NYC, at worldnet.att.net, and soon to have our own website, which will be a little different. We'll keep you posted. Look forward to hearing from you. Take care. Bye-bye.